Welcome to Stories of Star Achievers, and in this program, we present to you stories of extremely accomplished personalities and role models from our community who had a dream, persevered through many challenges, and accomplished a lot in their life and career, and which is a source of inspiration to everyone, including second-generation Canadians. And today, our distinguished guest is Honorable Mr. UJJAL Dosanjh. Mr. UJJAL Dosanjh is a lawyer, a writer, and a social activist. He was the Attorney General of British Columbia, ex-Minister of Health, and the first Indo-Canadian Premier of British Columbia. So welcome, Mr. UJJAL, to the show.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking out time for us. And I'm sure your story is going to motivate many people for times to come. Thank you very much once again for being with me in the studios here. So let me start. Can I request you to start sharing a little bit about your early days in India as a child and a little bit about your family?
I was born and raised in a village in Punjab. My birth is written incorrectly. I was born in 46 actually.
Okay.
Just before independence, and spent the first 5 or 6 years in my village with my parents and my Taji and Taiji, and then my Nana took me, my grandfather took me to his village, and I went to school, elementary school, in a school that he had established in abandoned premises of a Muslim family that had just gone to Pakistan.
Okay.
And that was his first year of that school, and I was number 7 in the class, first class of that school. So
Right.
I did my 4 years primary school there. And then I came back to my village, Dosanjh Kala, and I went to school in grade 5, and it was a school from grade 5 to 10. And that was a school that had been established by my father in 1932 along with some other friends.
Wow.
It was a non-profit school.
Okay.
And very small fees, and people from all over the area used to come to that school. So I did my grade 10 from there. From there I went to college, Ramgardia College at Fagwada, which is about 4 miles away from my village. I used to bike there every day and back, and that was when my father bought me my first bike. I thought it was a Porsche. 138 rupees
Wow.
and all, right?
Wow.
My mom had passed away when I was in grade 2.
Oh, okay.
So my Taiji brought us up, and one of our cousins. And my older brother, and I have 2 sisters, so there are 4 of us. And then as I was at college, I really wanted to do medicine. My father wanted me to do medicine, but he then changed his mind at the last minute. So I had some disagreements because I wanted to go to a different college. I wanted to switch to arts, humanities, and I knew he didn't have the money. You know, we had no salary coming anymore because he had retired. And 5 acres don't support too many students in expensive colleges. And so we were a family of about 12 or 13 people, extended family. So I escaped to England, just luckily. I started working, shunted trains, goods trains in England, made crayons in a crayon factory, was a lab assistant at a high school, worked in a car parts factory. So I, went to night school as I was working during the days. I did a couple of O-levels privately. Then I tried to get admission in a university, and one of the newer universities actually agreed to grant me admission in a combined law and politics degree, provided I did British history O-level.
Okay.
And, I came back and I looked at British history O-level syllabus, and I couldn't tell one King George from another, one Queen Elizabeth from another. So I decided this wasn't my cup of tea.
Okay.
It was too boring a history for me. I knew the constitutional history of Britain, but to actual history of Britain about all the kings and queens, I wasn't interested, and so I was looking for a way out. I happened to be in London helping edit and print and publish this newspaper. I happened to be on one of my trips to London on the Underground, and I'd be walking by Trafalgar Square. Canadian High Commission office happened to be right in my sight.
Okay.
And I just on a whim went into it because my aunt lived here, my Masi lived here.
Okay.
She had come here in 1954.
Okay.
And I used to correspond with her. They were very close to us because our mom had passed away. So both sides of the family were very close to us.
Right.
They're very protective of us. So I decided that perhaps I should ask the Canadian High Commission whether I could go to Canada. And at that time, they must have been looking for immigrants because I wasn't anything special. They said, oh, sure, fill out the application. I filled out the application right there and then.
Okay.
And they said, if what you say is true and you bring us the documents and your passport, we provisionally approve your application and here's the medical
Right.
requisition. Go get your medical and bring us the documents. And I did. In a couple of weeks, I came back and they stamped approval.
Okay.
And that was the time Enoch Powell had just made that speech. And England at that time was not as open a society as it is today.
Okay.
It was much more rigid, stratified, class conscious.
Right.
And I decided that Canada was my best escape.
Okay.
So I came here in 1968.
As you would agree that a lot of time, even in today's times, people are scared of the word, they fear change, and they fear these courageous steps. Now, you moved from India at a very young age to England, and from there, you took a very bold step of moving to Canada within 4 years of landing in London. So, how did you gather that courage? Were you having those inhibitions in your mind that, oh, new country, I have not got enough education yet, how would I manage myself? So how did you overcome those kind of initial fears which people have?
I actually never experienced those in the sense that, I did experience strangeness, right? I mean, I came into a strange culture, strange language. When I landed at the airport, one face looked like another. When you go to a different country, people look the same for a while, and then you begin to figure out who's who. And but it was an amazing transformation. As I landed, I got my training on board the Australian Airlines, the Qantas. That was the plane I took from India.
Okay.
And there were two professors sitting in front of me, one Indian, one English, ethnically, but they were both from University of London.
Okay.
And they were coming back from a conference in Australia or a sabbatical of sorts. And, they realized that I was new. I had never been on a plane before. I'd never even seen one before.
Okay.
And they kind of just embraced me and taught me how to use the sit-down toilet that I had never seen before.
Okay.
How to use a fork and a knife that I had never seen before. Forget using it.
Okay.
So as I landed at the London airport, I didn't know if a plane load of Indians coming for the same school had been turned away. I was in between two professors from London University, and the chap looks at me and asks me, why are you here? And I said, for higher education. I knew enough. My language was good. And as I landed, this is about experience. As I landed at London airport, I see janitors, men and women, in light blue uniforms,
Right.
with ties on.
Okay.
And sweeping. And I sort of looked at them and I said, coming from a very class-conscious country, India is a very class-conscious country, very color-conscious, very class-conscious.
Yep.
It was then, it still is, maybe less so, but still is. So coming from there, I looked at these people, they were wearing ties and suits, that's what they looked like, and they were janitors. And I said to myself, from that day on, all of the complexes some of us grow up with in societies like India,
Right.
Class consciousness, inferiority complex and all that, they just totally evaporated. It just in that one instant. That, what's a tie and a suit? What are clothes?
Yeah.
You need to cover yourself properly. They should be clean. Other than that, they don't have much value, right? So ultimately, that one experience of having met those professors who treated me like a real adult,
Yep.
like someone who was of their caliber, they didn't treat me like a child.
Okay.
And those janitors taught me a lesson in equality. And I from then on, I never looked back. I mean, I had the usual problems of not being able to find a job,
Right.
not being able to understand language, having to learn the accent.
Right.
And I found a way of doing that. And I was already politically very conscious and interested. So I would read newspapers, I'd go to the library on the weekends with my cousin buying groceries, and I would go to 2 libraries, county and public, and bring books that I wanted to read for the
Wow.
week, and listen to BBC debates. I never listened to much music, just BBC debates. There was a radio called BBC One, just like CBC here.
Yep.
It had no commercials.
Okay.
Then. CBC came to it much later after I came to Canada.
Right.
But BBC One had no commercials.
Right.
Debates, conversations, interviews, dialogue, Security Council debates, any conferences.
Wow.
That's all they had. And so I would be reading. If I didn't understand a word or I didn't know how to pronounce it, then I'd hear it.
Right.
And I'd say, wow. It was like a discovery with each new word.
Wow.
The meaning became clearer, the pronunciation became clearer.
Wow.
So I never actually took an English course
Wow.
to learn to speak English in England or in Canada.
Yeah.
I sort of self-taught myself.
Wow. So we'll take a short break now, and we'll come back soon to continue our discussion with Honorable Mr. UJJAL DOSANJH.
I swear to fulfill, to the best of my ability, this oath. When every split second is crucial, I will think, act, and react at the speed of survival. For all who meet me in their most critical moment, I will never give in or give up. I will fight.
Welcome after the break, and we are having a discussion with Honorable Mr. UJJAL DOSANJH. And it has been a very interesting discussion through his understanding his life journey. So we move forward from there. So Mr. DOSANJH, you have been writing poems from a very young age. And I understand your father didn't like it so much. But that passion continues, and it turned into you putting together a book, and which is called A Journey After Midnight. So would you share the motivation behind and a little bit about that?
Well, my father died in 1980, and my nana died in 1982. And I never really sat with them for any length of time to record their history. They had a very interesting history. I've been trying to piece it together. There was a small book written on my nana's life back in India in Punjabi. I've been reading that and other sources. And I was hungry for information. And I realized that if you don't put your history together, if you don't write your own history, nobody else is going to write your history.
That's right.
And it is important for your children and your grandchildren
To know that.
to know, because they might wonder one day, like I wonder sometimes now about my ancestors.
Right.
They might wonder one day, what happened to his life? Like, how did he become who he was? Or was he good, bad, or ugly, whatever? And so I decided that I wanted to do that. That was the main motivation.
Okay.
The other motivation was that, when people write history, they write it from a particular point of view.
Yeah.
I wanted to write my history of political involvement from my point of view.
Right.
So that it is established what I think, what I know.
Yep.
And, others will have their view.
Yep.
They have it now, they'll
Alright.
have it once I'm gone. It matters not. But I wanted to make sure that at least it was clear as to what I thought, why I did what I
Yep.
did.
Why you did, yeah, absolutely. That's a very good motive. That publishing your memoirs, your life journey, and even your family's background. And that's a great, and I do have that thought in my mind too. Coming forward, I'll
That's
definitely
important.
do that. Yeah. Now, the word change, it's the hardest thing to adapt, no? Accept change. I moved from India to Singapore and Singapore to Vancouver, and it always required a change. And I'm sure in your journey also, you had to embrace a lot of change while moving from India to London and then from there to Canada. So, what would your advice be to the people that, okay, how do they embrace change? What should be the attitude towards change?
Well, I think that first of all, it's important to understand why you move.
Yeah.
I moved for economic reasons and other reasons. And moving is always painful.
Yeah.
Change is just like moving.
Yeah.
It's painful too, but it also has positive rewards for you
There you go.
once you've been able to accomplish the change in yourself. I've never been rigid about anything in life. I've always looked at the circumstances I'm in. And one thing I always say is that what is important in life is that you come upon opportunities to make decisions,
Right.
make choices every day in life. Some are minor choices,
Some are-
like, what kind of bed you want to buy or what kind of food you want to eat. Those are unimportant choices,
Yep.
as far. But then there are other important choices.
Right.
What do you do if there is a political movement happening in your neighborhood? If there are serious issues that the community is grappling with, what do? You stand apart,
Mhm.
or you try and understand them? And then once you understand them, what choices do you make
Do you make?
in terms of changing or not changing?
Right.
And if changing, situation, in what direction? There were people running around in Vancouver who said that if I had run with the NDP, they would lose 10 seats. And he's finished. Dosanjh is dead. Because I hadn't run since 84, 85. And I said to Rami one day, I said, I don't particularly want to run. I was making $250,000 a year as a lawyer at that time, in 1989, 90. But I said, money is not important. Like, I want to be someone who can affect change. But if the perception is that I'm dead, how can I affect change?
Yeah.
Right? So I had to kind of basically say, I'm going to run again.
Right.
I'm going to run again. So that's how I made that decision. You make choices. Similarly, I made the choice in 84. I could have remained quiet. I would have been popular.
Yep.
Everybody would have loved me. Right? I would have had no enemies. But then I would have had no real friends either.
Absolutely.
In society, if you want to change something, they say, if you have no enemies,
Yeah,
you
friends.
have no real friends.
No real friends too. Yep. Yep. In life is always like up and down. We always have ups and downs.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you have very tough moments in life, and if you want to revisit your life journey, if you recall, what was the toughest moment of your life, and how did you overcome that?
My wife told me, I asked her that question. My wife told me that it was probably deciding to marry her. She's a tough woman.
Okay.
But on a more serious note, I think the toughest moment of my life, was when I left India.
Okay.
Because I was very attached to India. I'm still very attached to India. Like, others are too, but I think I am particularly attached.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had learnt the history of India, the movement, independence movement, my own family's participation in it. I had dreams and aspirations for the country. And then I left for many reasons. And to date, I remember vividly how hard I cried as I got on the train at Fagora to go to Delhi.
Okay.
That was the first time I went to Delhi. I'd never been to Delhi before.
Okay.
And so that was the toughest decision of my young life at that time. There's no one tough decision. I
Yep.
mean, deciding to run in 91 was a
Yep.
tough decision.
Was a tough decision.
Deciding to speak out in 84,
Was it?
I knew it wasn't going to be a popular decision.
Mm-hmm.
People weren't going to, most people or many people were going to disagree with me and get angry at me. But I had to make a choice. I had to be true to myself.
Right.
So toughest part of one's life is being true to your inner voice.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, John Maxwell says there's a concept called failing forward to succeed. Failure is a part of your success journey. You fail, fall forward, get up again, learn from it, and move on. Now, if you recall your life's journey and you identify what is the most favorite failure of yours and what is the lesson learned from there?
Well, I flunked chemistry in pre-university.
Okay.
And that was because I hated sciences by then, as I told you.
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew that unless I passed the exam, I wouldn't be able to move forward.
Right.
So that failure taught me that if I don't try harder, failure would stand in my way. My life wouldn't move forward. That's one lesson. It's like try again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't.
Yep.
They say try
Try.
again. It's not for nothing they say that.
Yep.
That is the essence of life. Try again.
Try again. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you recall the most memorable day of your success journey, what would that be?
Ordinarily people might say when I became an MLA or
Yep.
blah, 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 or when I became the premier.
Yep.
I don't know whether those are important days. Don't
Sure.
misunderstand me.
Sure.
I'm not belittling them.
No.
The most memorable day is when my grandfather, at the age of 8, I was in grade 2, after my mom's death, stood me up at a public function in my mom's village and gave me a peace poem to read. Used to publish in Soviet days. Soviet Russia used to publish in Punjabi. It's a beautiful Punjabi poem about peace in the world. And my Nana said, "You got to read it. You got to read it." And I was a shy kid. I used to stutter a little when I was young. And my Nana said, "You're afraid?" I said, "Yeah, I'm afraid." He said, not that it was true, but his way of impressing upon me a way of reading the poetry without worrying about others. He said, "Just think, they're blind, they're deaf, and they're dumb.
Okay.
The world is yours.
Mm-hmm.
You're in control. Just speak."
Yep.
And I think that one moment gave me the courage to speak out
Okay.
all my life.
Wow. If you have to summarize 3 success mantras, what would that be?
Do you know, it's hard to summarize life in
True.
three mantras or
True,
10
true.
mantras. But in public life, I guess it might be different in private life, but in public life, it's very similar to private life. One should, when you're confronted with a problem, study the issue. Assess all the circumstances, make the right choice,
Right.
and be courageous.
Right.
When I was writing my autobiography, I had written 3 or 4 words on a notebook and had them in front of me. It basically said truth, boldness, and integrity.
Wow.
And that I wanted to write the book with those 3 principles in mind.
Okay.
Writing a book is like going through life.
Yeah. Truth, boldness, and integrity.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, you would have heard about mentors. A lot of people have mentors in life. Now, did you have a mentor in life? And if yes, in what way he influenced your life?
Well, I have had the privilege of being raised by a very good, honest, ethical father and family, and nurtured politically and otherwise by him and my nana. So my two idols were my father and my nana, my heroes. Beyond that, my heroes were people who essentially fought for India's independence, and Mahatma Gandhi has always been one of my heroes. I came to him late in life. Came to him in my late 20s. That was when I first read his autobiography in full, My Experiments with Truth.
Yep.
And I've been a devotee ever since. I think he was a great human being, as good a mentor as any in the world.
Okay. So, connecting to the dots here again, if I had to say the word successful, what's the first name that comes to your mind?
Mahatma Gandhi.
Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah, I could connect the dots there. Now, going forward, gratitude is one of the biggest virtues of life. Now, if you had to thank 3 people in your life, who would they be?
I'll answer the question, but not the way you asked.
Sure.
And not necessarily in this order either.
Sure.
My wife, my extended family, and my friends.
Awesome. Very nice. They all contributed to your success journey.
Yeah.
If you had to give one lesson for the future generation, what would that be?
You know, when you look at a problem, you look at the world, be courageous. Change needs courage.
Right.
If you want change, you gotta be courageous.
Fantastic. And hold tight to it. Yeah, hold tight to the principles. Thank you very much, Honorable Mr. UJJAL. And, this was very insightful. I learned so much from you, and I'm sure our future generations will also learn a lot from your interview today. And, this will be a huge source of motivation and inspiration for many people for times to come. Thank you very much again, and really appreciate you taking time out.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
I swear to fulfill, to the best of my ability, this oath. When every split second is crucial, I will think, act, and react at the speed of survival. For all who meet me in their most critical moment, I will never give in or give up. I will fight.